Today it's hey guys, welcome to the live broadcast. I think we're up and running again. It's Ask Andrew Anything. So a bunch of questions get turned in, and we go through those questions. So I think some of these today are going to be interesting, and then some of these are going to be really, really fun questions today. So let's get started. Having said that, if you're not a member of Burke Cashflow Investors, make sure you become a member and join us 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So today we're going to go through a few questions, and we're going to go through a deal or a no deal also. So that's kind of the agenda. Having said that, let's go ahead and get started. So the first question was, what is the strategy to adopt if a property ARV is not so great, right? So, but the cash flow is phenomenal on the property. So a perfect, in this example, I'll kind of maybe put the numbers on the board. It'll make a little bit more interesting to understand what happens if you have a situation where, so in this particular case, the property is being bought for $120,000, and your rehab budget on it is $35,000, and then you have another I'm going to say 10,000 in costs, just to make it kind of even. So basically, you're in this deal for 165. So what's happening is that this particular person wants to use this particular property as a rental property. So they have great cash flow. So generally, we're trying to hit kind of three marks here. Number one is your equity. We'll call it, that's EQ, equity. Number two is your cash flow. And number three is your DCR, right? Which is debt coverage ratio. So in all of these three, so this one is working. This one is working. The problem is with the equity. So what happens? So in this particular property, let's look at how much equity do we need. Generally, we want a minimum of 25% equity. 30 is phenomenal, but we want 25% equity. So why do we want 25% equity? The reason we want 25% equity is because when you have 25% equity, you're not going to have any money in the deal, right? So bought for this, rehab for this, this is the carrying cost, interest payments, taxes, insurance, your hard money lender or private money lender in this case, whatever you bought it for. So 165 is your back end value. So what does that mean? So what that means is it looks something like this, right? If you have, say, 165, this is the amount that this person needs to refinance out. So let's just do some simple math, right? So what would it be if I basically want a value which is 25% higher? So I'm going to go. So basically at what happens at 2, let me just do the math. Okay, so basically I need 220,000 in back-end value. If the property appraises for 220,000 at 75%, right? 75%, I can refinance this amount of money out, right? So in this case, what the investor feels is the value may not come up quite at 220,000. So their question is, what would be a great strategy to adopt for this case? Now, the way the question is asked is, I'm assuming that this person does not have the money that they may need to be able to leave in the deal. Otherwise, if it was somebody who can leave, say, 10,000 in the deal and just go ahead and keep the property for cash flow, then that's totally fine, right? I used to be, from time to time, at one point in my life, I was in this position where I didn't have the money, right? I didn't have quite enough money to do as many deals that I wanted. But if I still wanted to keep a deal, let's just say at the time I didn't have the money, then what I would do is I would basically partner up with another investor. They put up the money that is needed. I'm the one who found the deal. I'm the one who's going to get a rehab. I'm the one who's going to get everything done. And then in the long run, we keep it as a cash flow property and we split it. So a perfect example of this is a property we bought in Berwyn, right? So these are real life numbers. So let me just kind of explain that really quick, right? We were in that particular deal for $220,000. So what happened was that when the property got appraised, I couldn't quite get $220,000 out of that particular deal, right? By the time I bought it, by the time I rehabbed it, by the time we did the carrying cost and everything, it came up to about 220. So what ended up happening is, at the time, John, who was my business partner, he ended up leaving $32,000 invested in the property, right? Now, today, it's about 5 years later, 6 years later, something like that. Today, this particular property is worth $400,000, right? This is what this property today is selling for. In fact, we have it on the market a little bit higher, and we have a couple of offers on the property, right? So now think about this. At that time, could I have really flipped the property? Could I have? Yes, I could have flipped the property, but I probably would not have sold it any more than $250,000. So by the time I basically paid the expenses, paid all that stuff, I would have made very, very little money. Yet what I decided to do at that time was I decided to hold the property and not necessarily sell it. Yet today, obviously, in 4, 5, 6 years, the property prices have come up quite a bit, right? Now we're selling the property. Why are we selling it, right? Do I need to sell the property? No. But when we look at John, John is much, much, much older than me. So he's maybe my parents' age, right? And so now we're thinking about it. Okay, well, and this is just it's a morose thing, but you have to think about these things, right? A couple of years ago, he lost his wife. She was in ill health, and he lost his wife, right? These are things that we have to think about. So you can start getting in your 70s, 80s. Now, fortunately, he has great kids, but we don't necessarily know them. Right now, we'd have to go through that whole thing. So now, as he's doing those types of plannings, we looked at the numbers and we said, hey, we're going to go ahead and sell it. So what's going to happen is right now, the loan on this is about $170,000. So if I take $400,000 and if I subtract 170, so that's going to be 40 minus 17. So that's going to be 23. Right, so that's 230,000 is basically what we have. Then we would have to pay his money back. So then we subtract another out of 230. I'm going to subtract another 32,000 out of it. 32,000. So what would our profit be in this particular case? So that's 230 minus 32. And that leaves me with $198,000 profit. So that's total profit for 198. And what that means is he made an investment of $32,000. And after 6 years, not only is he going to get all his money back here, but I take 198 divided by 2. That gives me, he's going to make $99,000 on that deal, right? He got his money back and he made, so basically, guess what happened? The $32,000 he gets back. On top of that, he gets $92,000 in profit. I get a $92,000 in profit. Now, is $92,000 today all the money in the world? No, it's not, right? Because the $92,000, now I'm going to either have to basically take that as cash or I'm going to have to do a 1031 deferred exchange. But in this case, I'm not going to get into the kind of accounting part of it today. The property was not in my name. The property was held in John's name. So I'm not going to be able to do a 1031 exchange in this particular case, right? So I'm going to have to basically take it. I'm going to have to pay tax on it. But still, out of thin air, still, came up with about $60,000, $60,000 to $65,000, depending on what tax bracket you're in, right? So my point being is this, that what this person who asked this question has to look at and say, okay, this property is not going to necessarily appraise out to the amount that I want. And as long as the area is good and you are confident about your cash flow, then I would keep the deal. I would partner up with somebody. If you feel the area is marginal and If you're only buying it for cash flow, then I would reevaluate it, and maybe you want to just flip the property, get rid of it, or not buy it in the first place. I'm not sure where you are in that stage, but hopefully that thing makes sense. Second question was, this is related to commercial buildings, right? A lot of vacant commercial buildings in the United States, major downtown cities are vacant, so on and so forth. What is the highest and best use? I wish I could answer that question with a straight face.
Housing.
Excuse me?
Apartments. Turn the office buildings into apartments.
Okay, so basically what Joe is saying is turn the buildings into apartments, right? And he may be partially right that you can turn, some of those buildings could be turned into condos, some of those buildings could go as apartments. There has been a lot of reconversion, deconversion, that sort of thing done, right? So clearly that is maybe one option. But then what happens to buildings that are office buildings? So like the office building we're in, right? So we have four big buildings, this being the biggest one, this building next door, this building over there, and so it's a four building. So when we bought the place, this is a 15,000 square foot building. Nowadays, there are a lot of buildings like this that are available, right? I bought this building because this is very convenient to where I live, where all of us as a group live in the Oak Brook, Lombard area. So this works for us because we're all in the office. We have a big meeting space, but most people today are working from home. So a lot of these buildings, I mean, across the street, there's a lot of big commercial buildings that are basically sitting vacant. And right across the street, there's a big mall here in Lombard where that mall was just torn down, right? That part of the mall, and they're putting up condo buildings. They're putting up 250 condos over there, right? Because there's much more demand for housing. And with the tax structure the way it is, a lot of times, like this particular, the 15,000 square foot building we own here, the taxes on this are $40,000. And this is cheap, mind you. If this same building was in Cook County on a building like this, we would be paying close to $110,000, $120,000 in tax, right? And then it wouldn't make sense to own it. Why? Because it's not justified. That amount of money in taxes is not justified because I don't get to depreciate that off, right? And I'm not getting any savings because of it. So it's cheaper for us to go to hotels or just to go rent office space with a bigger place, because that is much cheaper for us. So in a lot of these cases in the suburbs, what we're seeing is a lot of these buildings are being torn down, and so that you don't have to pay taxes on it. Because if a building is vacant or that piece of land, you own it, and that's happened a lot, right? Old Menards building, a lot of those, friend of mine bought a 8 or 9 acre piece in Hanover Park, and she ended up turning that whole thing into, I think, 24 townhouses, and she still has a large piece where she's going to put up a multi-unit. At least it's passed for that, and then another medical facility, right? It's passed for that. So basically it's being repurposed. But what happens to some of the big buildings that are downtown where they're not controlling crime, they're not controlling the wild behavior that people have? This is going on in Chicago. I mean, look at Portland, Oregon. Look at parts of Seattle, right? San Francisco. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how the future holds. I do know one thing, though, that we go through cycles, right? And if you look at it historically, 70s, if you look at the amount of crime there was a heck of a lot more crime in the 70s, downtown Chicago, right? You look if UIC, that whole area, it was really, 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 really bad, right? At one time. Today, that area is much better. Yes, is the crime higher than what it was 4 years ago? 100%, right? No question about it. And some of that has to do with politics, other things that are not under our control. But clearly, these are issues. But I'm one of those believers that what happens is we go through these cycles. At one time, if you look at today, if you go to Times Square, it's beautiful, right? Literally millions and millions and millions of people go there every year. It's a gorgeous part of New York at one time, and it's not too bad. I mean, not too long ago. You go back to the 80s. Literally, they had all the basically all the seedy businesses, the strip joints, all the porn shops. I mean, that was what Times Square was. people didn't go. You didn't have as many visits because you weren't sure if you're going to get mugged, robbed, and it was considered a seedy part of New York. Today, it's the place to go if you go to New York. So cities go through these types of places. Mayor Giuliani came into New York and he cleaned house, and it was good for business. But so I don't know. It's a difficult question to answer because some of it is speculation. Clearly, in good locations, you take a location like Oak Brook, right? Big buildings, McDonald's headquarters were torn down, and they put up a huge residential building called I think Oak Brook Tower, whatever it's called, right across from the mall. So they repurposed it, and to repurpose the building, they destroyed the whole building because it's an office building, and because the land was so valuable, they put up this nice big tower with a big parking lot next to it because people want to live in Oak Brook, and they'll pay $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in rent because you're in Oak Brook and it's such a central location and it's a nice place to live. So it's going to depend on where the location of the building is, where the location is, what are the tax structures, especially in a place like Chicago, where the taxes are going to have a major effect on what happens. But generally, downtown has done well. But the crime part of it, people will pay to be downtown. But what people will not put up with over time is they will not put up with crime because the quality of life is what goes down. People live downtown because they feel they have a great quality of life. They get to enjoy all the restaurants. There's walking everywhere. Chicago downtown has been beautiful, but it's all based on crime and it's based on the tax structure. So that's just my opinion. Next question was, is wholesaling the safest way to get started in real estate? Well, it's subjective. Is it a great way to penetrate real estate? 100%, right? It's a great way to get started, especially if you get good at finding properties. Wholesaling is all about knowing how to find good quality deals, right? Can you basically turn up good quality deals? And then can you find buyers for it? If you're in the Chicago market, right, reach out to us. If you have deals, we are happy to buy. We're looking for properties. People in Mastery would love to buy good quality properties from you. Today, the challenge is not money. The challenge today is finding good quality properties at good prices, right? Now, you can't overprice a property because then nobody's going to want it. It's a phenomenal way for you to get started, but it's not the only way. The way I started investing was I started with flips. I had a little bit of money. I partnered up with somebody who's a friend. I borrowed $20,000 from him, and then I took the $40,000 as down payment. $20,000 I borrowed from Chase Bank at the time on a home equity loan, and $20,000 from him. That's how I did my first deal. At the time, I came from a real estate agent background, and had I heard of wholesaling? Yes, 100%. But I really didn't know that many people that had made a lot of money doing wholesales, right? Now, just because I didn't know, that means they didn't, it's not that they didn't exist. I was not aware of it at that time. There were a lot of deals at the time I would let go of. I'd find a lot of properties, but because I had never developed a network of buyers that would buy those properties. Now, today, if I find a lot of properties, guess what? The first people I'm going to give it to, people from Mastery, or I can sell it. I have a huge network of people in Chicago, especially, where I can easily move the property if it's a good deal. So wholesaling is not the only way, but it is a fantastic way for you to get started, and you don't have anything at risk. It's great because you can get paid up front and you can make a lot of money. I just saw a post from Jesse today, so I'll pick on him, Jesse Arnaz and his son, Damon, right? The first deal that they did, Jesse brought me so many bad deals, it was not even funny. And this guy's from Mastery, and I'm like, oh my God, right? Gold Mastery, and what the heck is he going to do? Yet, after, I must have turned down 10 or 15 deals of his that he thought it was a deal, and it was a dud, right? We wanted it to be a stud, but it was a complete dud. Yet, then he found another property where he made, on the first one, I think he made $5,000. Next one, he made $25,000. Third one, he made another $20,000. And then he started doing flips. And now he's off to rentals, his portfolio, and the whole 9 yards, right? So that was his way. He was paying a price. Every time I'd turn on a deal, oh my God, right? Real estate doesn't work. And today he did a post about a property in Berwyn that I believe he's doing a flip on. And that's what I was kind of picking on him a little bit, because it's okay. the best part about wholesaling is this: even if you find deals that nobody has a market for or nobody wants to buy it, you didn't lose anything, right? You maybe put up $100, $200, $500 to the seller, and you get your money back, even if you don't close on the property. So you have nothing to lose. If you start with wholesales, you have everything to gain. Only thing you may lose is a little bit of bruised ego. Oh my God, this didn't work for me. It's okay, right? This is a process for all of us. And if you want to learn more, show up to the next meeting when we talk about wholesales, and you will learn more about it. The next one was I want to find out about a property in East Chatham area of Chicago to buy as a condo for $45,000 with taxes at $700 per year. Association fee is $300 per month, and the rentals are going somewhere around $1,300 to $1,400, right? So I guess this person is trying to figure out, is this a good deal or is this a bad deal, right? So now this is going to depend, right? I'm not as well versed in East Chatham, so I don't know. But I think the first thing I would start with is that what are other properties in the building or in that area selling for? Is this a building you're buying? Is this in a condo, in a building? Is this a duplex type of a unit and you're calling it a condo, right? We had a couple people from Mastery buy a property in Chicago. It's a duplex. So in that particular case, there was no association fee. Now here, there's a $300 association fee. So if we look at these numbers on here, let's just say he's going to get $1,350 a month. There's $300 in association fee. There is $700 a year, so that's going to be about $60 a month he's going to pay in taxes. And then without principal or interest, right? Without principal or interest, his cash flow is going to be about 900 and I messed up my numbers. It was 60. So this is, 900 some dollars, right? So 560, 990, sorry. Okay. So $990 without principal and interest. So if he's buying the property for $45,000, and let's just assume, because I don't know how much work the property needs, it may need some work, it may need very little work, I don't know. But let's just assume it needs $45,000 plus another 20. So that's $65,000 plus 5, 6, 7,000 other costs. So let's say he's in that deal for $70,000. And I don't know if it's a he or a she, but let's just say the all-in price is about 70. So a mortgage on that with today's rates is clearly you're going to have pretty good amount of cash flow. So you may be perfectly fine buying it. The question you have to ask yourself is, number one, if you're buying this as an investment property, is anybody going to give you a loan for $45,000 or $60,000? Commercial loan, because they are not going to want to write a commercial loan for $45,000 to $60,000. A commercial commercial loan from a commercial type of a lender, hedge fund type of a lender. Now, the only way you're going to be able to do this type of a deal, if you're going to put a loan on it, is either you go the residential route, right, and get a loan on the property, or you go to a small bank right there within the neighborhood that's willing to write such a small loan. Because a lot of the bigger commercial lenders that we do business with, they're not going to want to do a loan less than $100,000, right? That's just their limit in terms of on the low side. And the other thing the person has to look at is, if I'm going to buy this property for a rental, again, we go back to the same criteria. Does the property have equity? What is the back end number on the property? Does the property have cash flow? Generally, we're looking for a minimum of $500 cash flow after expenses, PITI. And then what is the DCR, debt coverage ratio on the property? If the three criteria don't meet, right? And if your back end value is not really good, I would pass on the property. I would not buy the property. So hopefully that makes sense. Last question for today is a question which is, so I'm not going to give the area even though it's here. So somebody's buying a property for $260,000, right? That's their buy price. And it's in a really, really super nice area, 260. And in terms of their rehab budget on the property, the rehab budget is $60,000. So they're going to be in the deal for $320,000. Now, in this particular case, this person is, because of their email, they're not accounting for the carrying cost because they're like, well, I have cash and I don't really have to worry about the carrying cost on this. Well, they may have cash, but they have to think about the carrying cost on it. So I'm going to add that cost. So minimum, they're going to have a carrying cost on this property for $20,000. So that's going to be basically all in price of $340, right? Now, here's the question that they have. They're like, well, what should I be doing with this property? So in this particular case, the person who's buying it happens to be they're a consultant, right? That'd be the easiest way to describe their job. They're a consultant. They make a very, very good salary. Their wife has very, very, very good salary. And they already own about 40 or so rental properties, right? So now they haven't bought a property in an expensive area. Most of the rental properties they own in B type of neighborhoods. So this property is an A, if not an A+ neighborhood. So their question is, what do I do? So now, do they necessarily need to do a flip? No, they don't need to do a flip. But could they flip this property? Yeah, but then their cost is going to go up, right? Because they're going to have to do even more work to the property. But if they do a flip on this property, they would end up making about $85,000 if they flip the property, right? Now, if they did do a flip on this particular property, they would make 85, but then they're probably going to have to spend not 60, maybe 85,000 or so, something like that, right? So the question becomes is, should they do this as a flip? Given the situation of this particular person, and this number, I'm being very conservative. They may even make 100,000 on this. I'm just being conservative, right? So the challenge with this particular person is that if they do a flip, if they sell the property, they're just going to pay more tax because they're going to have more taxable income this year between him and his wife, very strong salaries. So, and they don't even spend the money that they make, right? And so my point to them was, hey guys, this may not be the best thing for you to flip the property because if I look at the back end value on this property, the back end value on this property is somewhere around 500,000, right? If not a little bit more. So it's 500,000 is what the property is worth, right? And the question becomes is they can get every single month, if they rent out this particular property, about $4,200, $4,300 in rent every single month, right? That is something very, very realistic. So in that particular case, what my suggestion to them was that number one, you could either do a rental on the property and just keep the property. You don't ever have to sell it, right? And just use your cash flow from the other properties and help take the rental from this one and some other properties and just pay this down in a hurry because it's such a good property. Why would you ever sell it? Or in the second case is if you do an Airbnb. So as a regular rental, they would make on this particular property, they would make about $700 as a regular rental. And because of the location of this particular property, even if I do the numbers on it on a conservative day, this is going to make $2,100 a month as a Airbnb in this particular location. Why? Because there's a lot of very high amount of employment in this particular area. And I'm obviously not revealing the area for a reason. Because I want this deal to go through, because otherwise a bunch of people will identify this area. They literally are signing the contract as we speak. So I want to make sure it's under contract and then we'll show you the area. But anyways, so they make $2,100, right? That's $2,100 that they're going to make from Airbnb after all expenses, running a very conservative number in terms of Airbnb on this thing. And this is with somebody else doing the management. So they don't even have to do the management. And the beauty of this is this, that literally they could take this amount of money and pay down the mortgage and pay it down at a very heavy number, or they could take this money, pay off other properties, or go buy more properties with it. And so in their particular case, they're not going to do a flip. They're going to keep this property because it's such a solid area. Imagine right? If you're in A areas and you own 30, 40 other rentals, and you have 12, 15, 18 properties that are completely paid off in good A areas, right? I mean, guys, multimillionaires don't own properties that are worth $500,000 or so a piece, where they have 5, 10 properties, 12 properties paid off. I mean, this is exciting, right? So when these types of opportunities come along, you really have to think about it, that does it make sense, right? Because when your basic needs are met, then you start thinking about long term. Then you start thinking about generational wealth. Then you're not thinking about, oh my God, I'm going to make 70, 80,000 bucks, because they can make 80,000, 100,000 bucks every day. It doesn't really matter with this property, because once it's fixed up, even if they sell it 3 years from now, they'll make more money. They sell it 5 years from now, they'll make even more money, right? Because why? The area is really, really solid. So it's not just about short-term returns. It's what happens long-term. That's really how you have to look at it. You have to look at the tax consequence. You have to look at what is my long-term plan. Hopefully that makes sense. Having said that, we will close up for today. Again, if you have any friends and family, you can refer to us at Burke Cashflow Investors. Hopefully, as we do these, you find some value. It inspires you. It makes you think. It motivates you. That's our goal. And remember, for everybody that joins, the person that joined, we are going to give away a airline ticket for 2. And this is the third prize that we're giving away. So we'll do that drawing in a month or so. And hopefully somebody new will win this time. Last time, one of the people that won was Amal. Before that, it was Trinidad. And they referred a lot of people. So they had the highest odds of winning. So if you have any friends or family, please reach out to them. Any friends that invest or other fellow investors that would like to invest, learn, and let's all grow together. Having said that, thanks a bunch and have a good day.